if you're looking to get a starting arming sword, the North Armory Celeste arming sword is quite the good contender. A year or so back, these Celeste arming sword came onto the market when there was not too many arming swords that are readily available. There are the Castillo, there are the Given, and there are many other ones, but they are often very quickly sold out, especially in Canada. So, supply and demand wise, I believe, and also the cost constraint when especially COVID happens, is that blades became quite expensive. Now, and this is where the Celeste came into play at about $285 Canadian before tax. You can own a really cool arming sword. And it's quite a nice, nimble arming sword, and after a year of using it, it still stood up quite well. There are no physically burrs, there are no deformation in the blade, the handle is still quite nice and true, and so it's still going strong. So we're quite pleased with the Celeste blade. Weighing at just 896 grams, of course some of them may vary. This arming sword features a 32-inch blade, ending in a bit of a nice roll tip right here. Now that roll tip can be a little bit big for a lot of people. If you look at it, that's about a centimeter of a roll tip, meaning roughly around a little bit more than a quarter inch. The thing is about these roll tips that they're quite big, so we do recommend putting a leather tab over it and taping it over. At the start of the tip, we're looking at almost a little bit more than a centimeter, which is about ½ inch of profile, 3mm thick. We're looking at roughly around a little bit more than that, so that is almost 3/4 of an inch, just almost at about 2 centimeters. At the base of the blade, it features an extremely wide shoulder, and that is more than 4 centimeters, almost at about 5 centimeters. Of course, roughly about just shy of 2¾ inch. Year of using it, we noticed that, of course, scratching and denting is quite common, and I think we only had on this one suffering one little bit of a notch right there. A little bit of a notch, not too much. Point and balance wise is sitting at roughly around 6 centimeters, almost 2 inches away from the handguard. And the handle would be almost at 5.25 inches, meaning that's roughly around 13 centimeters, with a really nice big pommel. What's really nice about this pommel is that it actually lined up quite nicely with the handle. So then a lot of the pommels that they actually get too big, so then it actually creates a little bit of a heat spot. And this one, of course, we have no issue at all. Because the handle is so long and generous, it actually fits most HEMA gloves, even the clamshells. At the end of it, it ends at almost this little bolt finish. And this bolt itself will actually go in a little bit more to the pommel. Bottom of the handle actually has a piece of metal ring wrapped around it between the leather and the wood. I freaking love that. What happens is, if you have a pommel being put on top and you have a bolt and nut or whatever, and you just keep twisting, what happens is that the depression is going to actually crack your wood. But with this metal banding right here, that actually stops the wood from splitting, so that when you're tightening your pommel, it actually goes in quite nicely rather than you jamming and breaking your wood. The sword itself behaves extremely agilely, nimble, but of course it's still quite nice and strong on the bind. Flexibility wise, it's a little bit more on the stiffer side of things, but it's still quite safe. It doesn't take a lot for it to bend really nicely. I think this is roughly around 10 to 15 pounds of flex before we get to a 6-inch. That often breaks an arming sword are the tang. So let's look at the inside mechanism on what's happening inside this handle. I've already loosened the Celeste up. However, your brand new Celeste will be actually quite tight. So you might actually need a little Spaniard, a little wrench or whatever for you to open that up. So as soon as you remove that nut, it actually goes in quite a lot. So it'll take you quite a bit to realize that your sword is falling apart. So you don't have, even if it's a little bit loose, your sword is not going to just explode into pieces. Okay, so we start off with an M8, which is going to be an 8mm, almost at 1.5 centimeter long of connector nut. These are actually quite common nowadays in the HEMA market. And of course, it has 2 Loctite nuts right here, have teeth on either side. It doesn't really come apart, it's just one piece. The pommel itself comes off quite simply. It seems to be one solid piece of metal. It's quite heavy. So I would assume that's just going to be a piece of mild steel. One side has a little slotted profile, and of course it actually is a full core out nut. So then if you want to use this for any other sword, I guess it will fit, as long as it's an M8. So let's take this handle right off. It is a 3D printed washer on top of a wooden handle. So, and of course it has this nice little leather wrap. The leather itself, it seems genuine enough. But in any case, so handguard comes off. A very nice and simple handguard, nothing really fancy about it. It's just a slot and that's it. So, but here is where the magic happens. I really like it how the blade itself, by and large, is essentially just one slab of steel that kind of go through all the way, so we don't have any weak art in the middle or whatever in the middle. The tanks definitely seem to be welded on. It's just going to be a very simple threaded rod that has this little piece that I guess this rod once upon a time, they milled it out, slide it in, weld the whole thing, but the weld seems to be quite nice. I mean, it's a welded piece, it's quite nice, and we haven't noticed any fracture or any crackling on this yet. Right at the base of the shoulder, we have a 2 centimeter thick shoulder right here that terminates at almost a centimeter at the base right here, which is about 1/4 inch. And the entire length of the tank comes at about 7.25 inches. So that is going to be 18 centimeter and a half. I actually quite like these blades, and I actually try to order a multiple copy of these just because I want to put these on multiple different hilts for me to try. The selling feature of this blade to me, definitely it's going to be that really wide shoulder, just because any other guard that goes in, it's going to fit just fine. And of course, the blade being so thin, it just kind of fits anything. I guess a common question is that would it actually break right here? Now, if we take a little bit closer look, I quite like how this angle right here, it's quite well rounded. It's not like a straight termination. So then this little well-roundedness is what helps absorb the impact of the sword, transferring over to the pommel without this snapping. Now, luckily, we have not seen any of these ever breaking in our club yet, but hey, you know what? Mileage may vary. Swords are meant to be broken, so you know what? If yours break at a certain location, please let me know. I'm very curious what happened to these. There are no washers in this entire construction, arguably aside from this one little 3D printed washer right here. So the good thing is that nothing really will come loose. And of course, if your sword's starting to come loose, I suspect there's a chance that there's a little bit of cracking right here at the base of the tank, which is what happens if you don't mind. A little bit cracking happening, you tighten it, a little bit cracking happening, you keep further tightening, and the tank just popped off. Haven't happened to this one yet, but it has happened to other brand of swords that I have. So putting everything back together is quite easy. Put the nut back in, this slides in, and you just kind of tighten it, and there you go. So I quite like how simple the construction is, just because if you're traveling or whatnot and you don't have like a big wide bag or whatnot and you cannot put this handguard in, I guess you can take everything apart, take this handguard off, put it however you like, and so everything is just nice, long, and sleek. One of the cons about this sword is that some people do find that a little bit too light, but for me it's quite nice for what it is. It's, once again, it's an economical sword under 300 Canadian dollars. It's quite fantastic. And the other part is that some people do find that this little bulb right here being a little bit too big for most people's preference, mostly because when you tip this, either you use a leather wrap tip or use one of those like plastic tip. When you tip this, when you're swinging it, the blade can be a little bit floppy just because there's so much mass at the end. So I guess if you do want to customize it, you can cut this off and then put like a folded coin at the end before you tip it. You definitely can do that. So then you can mitigate this big bobbiness. Another thing is that some people do find that this tang right here doesn't really sit in too much of the pommel too well. Once again, remember, it is a rod with a little slot. That slot, it's not perfectly at the same thickness as the tank. So then your pommel will wiggle a little bit. But hey, a wiggly pommel is better than a wiggly handguard, which gives you that rattliness that nobody really likes. So overall, I really like this Celeste arming sword. And of course, this one specifically is from North Armory, and I'm sure you can get these at other places as well. It's just that they are local to our club, so it's just quite nice buying from Victor. So, in any case, if you have any question about the Celeste arming sword, or if you want to share your experience about using your Celeste arming sword, I would love to hear about your thoughts. And of course, if your Celeste arming sword has broken, I would like to see where it broke. Is it at the point of percussion? Is it at the tang? Or is it that one little welded thread tang right there? And of course, if you have no use for those broken parts, I would absolutely love to adopt any of your broken sword part. For those who knows me, I like putting things together in the garage and just kind of weld it and tinker and turn things into a completely new weapon for HEMA sparring. So, in any case, thank you again for watching this video. If you like my video, please like, subscribe, and comment down below about your thoughts. And of course, if you have any tips on how do you want me to improve my video, let me know. I'm always happy to learn. All right, thank you again, guys. See ya.